Hi, this is Greg from GreBec Knives. I'm back for another video. It's been a while since we've done any, so as usual, if you enjoy our videos, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and check us out online at GreBec Knives. Now, this video is going to be about trade knives. There's multiple different trade knives that were shipped over here from the late 1600s all the way up to 1850. They were used for barter in place of cash. Cash wasn't readily available over here because we had no way to make it. Now they used these to trade for everything from furs, hides, beaver pelts, to tobacco and whatever products we shipped from here back to England and France. The English trade knife, which was the most prevalent of the time period, was sent over here by England to provide the knives to the settlers, to the colonists, to the soldiers that were over here, as well as to the Indian population. They traded them for literally everything that was manufactured here. Not really manufactured, that was created here and grown. The knives of that era didn't have a secondary bevel on them. They had just a single flat bevel, a convex grind all the way from the spine to the belly of the knife. That made them very sharp when you had that continuous flow. It made them so sharp they used to have a term for it. They called them sticky sharp. That means if you put your thumb on it and slide it, it just took a piece off your thumb. These knives are excellent for kitchen use. They're excellent for field use. They're excellent for just about anything that they did during the time. They're a very plain looking knife. They didn't have bolsters for the most part. They didn't have pommel areas. They just had, in general, they were a half tang knife. That means the tang stops right there, and they had 2 pins in it. I assume they did that because there wasn't a whole lot of steel available at the time. So they got as many knives out of a piece of steel as they possibly could. This is a little bit heavier than the half tang version, but it's still only 3.4 ounces to 3.6 ounces. Sometimes it gets almost up to 4 ounces. But it's still an extremely light knife. The finish on these, I'm trying to duplicate what would be a patina on the knives. I use a vinegar soaking process to create the patina. We want it to look like it's a used knife, an old knife, so it looks just like the ones that your grandparents would have passed down to you later on in life. The main difference between the knives that we use today for basically field work, hunting, everyday carry, is they did not have a ricasso. The ricasso is that nice little area between the sharp part of the blade and your finger that helps protect your finger. With these, if you hold on to it and slide up onto the blade, you cut the end of your finger off. So they weren't necessarily as safe, but they were very effective. Now, if you want to see just how sharp they are, we'll just grab ourselves a piece of paper here and we'll test it. They are wicked scary sharp. The last knife that we have using for a trade knife is this little, I call it a tiny trade knife. I don't know what they really called it, but it was a trade knife, the last one that they showed up with that I can find on record, and it came around in about 1850 or so. They brought this one over here, and it was sold along with all the other kitchen knives and trade goods. And not sure when it first originally showed up, but I saw a photo of it in an auction site, and I decided, hey, I really like that. So we now have an 1850s tiny trade knife in one of our historic knife collections. This thing is the exact same design as the others, and it is sticky sharp. You can just feel it grabbing your skin. Now, what it was used for, I would assume it was a paring knife. It was used for a patch knife. It was used for all different kinds of things in the field, home, kitchen, yard, and anywhere that you'd like to use a small knife. Now, those are the 3 different designs that I make. I make the English design, I make the French design, and I'm making the tiny trade knife from the 1850s. Now, if you try to find information on trade knives from the 17th century, good luck. I found very, very little information. Apparently, they didn't keep records. The records they did keep showed something like along the lines of 12 gross of knives were shipped over in one ship. Now, you might have 2 or 3 batches in 2 or 3 different ships coming over. There's somewhere between 100,000 and 2 million knives that they shipped over here. And that was between probably the English, the French, and probably not covering the later knives that were shipped. But the English and the French were only 2 of the countries that shipped knives over here as trade knives. The Spanish, the Germans, and probably all the countries that were over in Europe at the time shipped them over. But I'm going to stick with the French and the English designs. Just imagine yourself back in the 1700s and you came to the New World. What is one of the most important things that you're going to have in your life? Well, you're going to have a way of preparing food. The English trade knife was the most prevalent knife of the time, and that's considered the small trade knife, and that was the most prevalent knife that they shipped. They would ship several gross of these, along with several of the longer knives that I'm not making yet, but I will someday. And this was the mainstay of the colonists. You figure you're in the New World and you need to go out and you need to make some way of making a living. So you did fur trapping, you did harvesting, and that's what you would use. You would also use that in your kitchens. It makes a great kitchen knife. Now, I've made myself a couple of these to use for test knives, and I've got a tiny trade knife from the 1850s, and I have a French version that will be demonstrating how useful these things really can be. Now, here we have standard little lemon. We're going to play with that with a tiny trade knife from the 1850s. This is probably my favorite knife that I use. And you have your lemon slices. Now we're going to test out the larger knife called the small French trade knife. I'm going to go ahead and just chop this chicken piece in half, bone and all. I've got these all washed up and cleaned up. In order to wash them, you wash them like you do with any high carbon steel knife. You just go ahead and run your water until it's warm, and then take a rag with a little soap on it, and you wash them down, being careful of that wicked, scary edge. Now, you dry them off. You do not soak them in water. They are made out of 1095 high carbon steel, so you have to treat them like any high carbon steel knife. Once you're done cleaning them up, occasionally I put on a little bit of axe and knife wax. It's very simple to apply. I believe I even have a video of cleaning the products up, but we're going to go ahead and wax them up a little bit, just to show you how simple it really is. I put it on the handle as well. They are a stabilized wood for the most part, unless I specify that it's not. Like this French one doesn't have stabilized wood, but I'm trying to use all stabilized wood on them because it makes your life much easier and makes my pretty knives last longer. Once you get it waxed, you simply wipe it off. It's ready for the next step, which would be sharpening. Now I've got both of my knives waxed, cleaned and waxed, and ready for the step that I use for maintaining the sharpness. Now, because these knives do not have a secondary bevel, you don't necessarily want to put them on a stone or on a steel or on anything that you use normally, like sticks or whatever. What I use is a strop. I take a strop that we just started making these, but you can buy them all over the place. They're a wood-backed strop, is what I've decided I like. And you just simply lay it on there. And I use a compound to make it a little bit more aggressive. If you choose to not use a compound, it takes a few extra strokes, but you can do it without compound, and it doesn't get all matted and sticky like that. Now you can resurface them if you choose. That one is sharpened back up. Now, you don't have to do this every time you use them. I'm just demonstrating the use of it because, after all, I'm sure you're not familiar with a single-edged knife. that pretty much wraps up my discussion on trade knives from everything from the late 1600s all the way up to the 1850s for this one. We have the tiny trade knife from the 1850s. We have the French trade knife. We have the English trade knives. And we'll also be introducing any of the others that I choose to make. Now, if you want to learn more about these or any of our other products, go to GreBecKnives.com. Please sign up for our newsletter, which comes out once a week and has all kinds of interesting little information from our blogs down to, yes, these videos. And it'll also have a new thing that we put into the newsletter called our Featured Knife of the Week. It has a discount on the featured knife. We'll pick one knife a week that we put in there, and you'll be able to get a discount on that specific knife. It changes weekly. So once again, if you like our videos, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and visit us at GreBecKnives.com.